Hide me. Now. Victor Hale's voice fractures under the fluorescent hum, his hands gripping the edge of the counter like it's the only solid thing left in the world, knuckles pale against the worn laminate of the East Calder Street diner, his breath uneven, eyes darting past Mara Vance toward the neon-lit windows as if something out there is already deciding whether he lives through the next minute. Mara doesn't answer right away. She stands where she always stands, behind the counter, one hip angled slightly, a dish towel forgotten in her hand, but there's nothing routine about the way she's looking at him now, not startled, not confused, just still, her gaze fixed on his face like she's stripping away the panic to find something underneath it, something he isn't saying. Outside, a car door slams hard enough to rattle the glass. Victor flinches, shoulders tightening, and when he leans closer his voice drops into something sharper, more urgent, like time itself is collapsing around him. You don't get it, they're right behind me. Mara's eyes flick once toward the window, catching the smear of headlights crawling across the diner's reflection, slow and deliberate, then back to him, her expression unchanged, which somehow makes his fear feel louder, more exposed, like it's the only unstable thing in the room. You shouldn't be here, she says quietly, not raising her voice, not asking questions, just stating it, like a boundary that already exists. Victor swallows, his throat tightening, and for a second he looks less like the kind of man people whisper about and more like someone who's run out of places to go. I didn't have a choice, he says, and there's something brittle in the way the words land, like they've been used before and never fully held. The bell above the diner door gives a faint metallic twitch, not opening, just touched. Both of them hear it. Mara doesn't turn this time, but something shifts in her posture, subtle, almost invisible, the kind of adjustment that isn't about fear, but about readiness. They don't knock twice, Victor mutters, more to himself than to her, his fingers tightening against the counter as his gaze flicks again toward the entrance, tracking movement only he seems to fully understand. Not unless they're making sure. Making sure of what? Mara asks, but her tone doesn't chase the answer, it measures it. That there's nowhere left to run. The words settle between them, heavier than the noise outside, and for the first time Mara exhales slowly, her eyes drifting to the reflection in the stainless steel coffee machine, where shadowed shapes move just out of focus, multiplying, tightening around the edges of the diner like a net being drawn closed. Victor leans in closer, lowering his voice until it barely carries. If they come in here and I'm still standing at this counter, he stops, jaw tightening, then forces the rest out. They won't just take me. Mara watches him carefully now, not the panic, not the words, something deeper, something that doesn't quite match the performance of fear, and her fingers shift slightly behind the counter, out of sight, as if they've found something familiar. You brought this with you, she says, and it lands less like an accusation and more like a conclusion she's already reached. They were coming either way, Victor shoots back, too fast, and that's when it shows, the crack, the smallest hesitation before the certainty, like the truth isn't quite lining up with what he needs her to believe. Another car pulls up outside, slower this time, engine idling. The light spills across the diner in a cold wash, turning the glass into a mirror, and now there's no mistaking it, figures moving, spacing themselves out, watching the entrances like they've done this before, like they expect resistance. Mara shifts her weight, just slightly, and for the first time her gaze sharpens, something colder settling into it as she looks back at Victor. You don't call anyone, she says, almost to herself. You don't go to the police, you come here. Victor doesn't deny it. He doesn't even look surprised she noticed. I came to you, he says, and there's something different in his voice now, less frantic, more certain, like this part of it was never in doubt. Because you're the only one who can fix this. Mara's eyes narrow just a fraction, the calm cracking, not into fear, but into recognition, like a word she hasn't heard in years has just been spoken out loud. Fix what? She asks. He doesn't answer. The silence stretches, thick and deliberate, and outside the diner door finally creaks under pressure, a hand testing it, not opening it yet, just confirming it's there, confirming it leads inside. Victor glances toward it, then back at her, and when he speaks again his voice drops even lower, almost a whisper. If they find me here, it doesn't stop with me. Mara doesn't move. But something inside her shifts, slow and heavy, like a door she sealed a long time ago has just felt pressure on the other side. Then you shouldn't have come here, she says, quieter now, and there's something else under it. Not fear, not anger, something closer to warning. Victor holds her gaze, and for the first time since he walked in, he looks steady. I didn't come here by accident, he says. Another step sounds outside. Then another. Closer now. Measured. Mara's fingers tighten around whatever she's holding out of sight, her eyes flicking once more toward the door, calculating distance, timing, options, and finding none that don't end badly. You need to leave, she says, but the words don't carry conviction anymore, not with the way the room is closing in around them. Victor shakes his head, just once. There's nowhere else. The door handle rattles. Harder this time. Mara inhales slowly, the kind of breath that settles something inside instead of easing it, and when she looks back at him, the distance between them feels different, shorter, heavier, like a line is about to be crossed whether she allows it or not. You don't get to bring this into my life, she says, her voice low, controlled, but no longer detached. Victor doesn't look away. I already did, he replies. The words hang there, irreversible, and then he leans in just enough for only her to hear what comes next. You owe me. For a fraction of a second, Mara freezes. Not from fear. From recognition. Outside, the door slams open. The door slams open hard enough to rattle the glass, and the sound carries straight through the walls into the back room, sharp and final, like something has just crossed a line that doesn't uncross. Mara doesn't move at first. Her eyes stay locked on Victor Hale, on that single sentence still hanging between them, you owe me, but the weight of it shifts now, dragged forward by the noise above, by the boots stepping onto tile, by voices that don't rush or shout, just spread out with quiet certainty. They're inside, Victor says under his breath, not panicked anymore, just precise, like he's naming a fact he's already accounted for. Mara turns away from him then, just enough to listen properly, her focus snapping upward as footsteps separate, one toward the booths, another toward the counter, a third lingering near the door like it's sealing the exit rather than guarding it. There's no chaos in it, no wasted motion, and that's what makes her jaw tighten. These aren't men searching. They're men confirming. You said they'd take you, she murmurs, her voice low, measured, but her attention fixed on the pattern above them, mapping it out without looking. That doesn't sound like taking. Victor exhales once, slow, controlled, and for a moment he almost looks like himself again, the version of him that doesn't shake. It isn't, he says. Not anymore. That lands differently. Mara's gaze shifts back to him, sharper now, catching the edge in his tone, the absence of fear where it should still be. Then what is it? He hesitates. Not long, but long enough to matter. And above them, something scrapes across the counter, a drawer opening, utensils shifting, the kind of detail that shouldn't feel dangerous, but does, because it's too deliberate. They're not here to negotiate, Victor says finally, his voice dropping lower. They're here to close something. Mara studies him, the words settling into place, reshaping what this moment is, what it's been since the second he walked through that door. This isn't a man escaping something unpredictable, this is a man who knows exactly how it ends. You knew this would happen, she says. It isn't a question. Victor doesn't deny it. Another set of footsteps crosses directly above them, slower now, pausing, as if whoever's up there is listening the same way Mara is, trying to feel what's beneath the floor rather than just see what's in front of them. They won't rush the back, Victor continues, quieter still, his eyes flicking toward the ceiling like he can see through it. They'll clear the front, check the exits, then sweep here last. Mara doesn't respond right away. She just watches him. Really watches him now. The way his breathing has steadied, the way his hands have stopped shaking, the way his fear has narrowed into something more controlled, and it hits her, not all at once, but enough to shift the ground under her feet. You're not guessing, she says. No. Then you've done this before. A beat. Victor meets her eyes, and there's no panic left in his expression now, just something colder, something that fits too well inside this moment. More times than you'd like. The truth of it settles in the room, heavier than the noise above, and Mara feels it press against something she's been holding in place since he walked in, a boundary, a version of reality where he's just a problem that arrived, not one that already belongs here. Another sound above them, a chair dragged across tile, then a voice, low and clear this time, cutting through the space with authority. Check the back. Mara's chest tightens, not outwardly, not in a way anyone else would see, but inside, where the timing collapses in on itself. She glances toward the door, then back at Victor, calculating again, but the numbers don't change. There's no clean way out of this, not anymore. You brought them here, she says, quieter now, but the accusation has sharpened into something more precise. Not just to run, to finish something. Victor's jaw shifts, tension returning in a different form, and for the first time he looks like he might say more than he should. They were already looking, he says. I just made sure they found me somewhere I had a chance. Mara's eyes narrow. A chance at what? He doesn't answer directly. Instead, he steps closer, just enough that his voice doesn't have to carry. If they take me out there, it ends clean for them. No noise, no questions, no loose ends. And in here, she asks. Victor holds her gaze, steady now, unwavering. In here, it complicates things. That's the shift. Not escape. Leverage. Mara feels it settle into place, the shape of it, the intent behind it, and suddenly the room feels smaller, tighter, not because of the men above them, but because of what Victor has turned this into. You didn't come here for safety, she says. No. You came here to change the outcome. A faint, almost humorless breath leaves him. Something like that. Another footstep above, closer now, directly over the back room, and then a pause, longer than the others, like whoever standing there has stopped to listen. Mara doesn't look up this time. She doesn't need to. Her focus stays on Victor, on the space between them, on the realization that settles heavier with every second, that whatever this is, it didn't start tonight, and it's not ending cleanly no matter what she does. You said it leads back to me, she says, her voice lower now, more controlled, but carrying something sharper underneath. That wasn't a warning. Victor doesn't blink. No, he says. Another beat passes, stretched thin by the weight of everything not being said, and Mara feels something shift inside her. Not panic, not fear, recognition, slow and unwelcome, like a memory pressing against the edges of her thoughts without fully breaking through. Above them, a hand hits the back room door. Not hard. Just once. Testing. Mara's grip tightens around the object behind her back, her pulse steady even as the pressure closes in, and she takes a slow breath, her eyes never leaving Victor's. Then say it, she tells him. He hesitates again. Longer this time. The kind of hesitation that costs something. And when he finally speaks, his voice is quieter than before, but it lands harder. If they take me, he says, each word measured, deliberate, they don't just close my file. Mara doesn't move. They reopen yours. The words hit, not like a shock, but like something falling into place that she's been holding back without realizing it. And for a second the room feels different, older, heavier, like the past has just stepped into it without asking. Above them, the handle turns. The handle shifts, just a fraction at first, metal brushing against the frame with a quiet, deliberate pressure, and Mara feels it in her spine before she hears it, that subtle give that means whoever's on the other side isn't guessing anymore. Her eyes stay on Victor. Not because she's calm, but because looking away now feels like losing something she can't get back. They reopen yours. The words don't echo, they settle, heavy and precise, threading through something deeper than the room, something that doesn't belong to tonight at all, and for a second, just a second, Mara's grip loosens, not physically, but somewhere underneath, where instinct usually holds. Above them, a voice murmurs, too low to catch, too controlled to ignore, and then the handle presses again, a little firmer this time, testing the resistance. Mara inhales slowly, the air in the back room stale with grease and metal and something sharper underneath, something she hasn't noticed until now because it didn't matter before, but it matters now. Gun oil. Her gaze flickers, just once, down to Victor's jacket, to the faint sheen along the seam near his ribs, and it hits her not as a realization, but as a recognition she's been avoiding. Not new. Not tonight. Familiar. You didn't run here, she says quietly, her voice losing that edge of control, not breaking, just shifting. You came back. Victor doesn't answer right away. The delay stretches, filled with the sound of the door handle turning again, slower now, more confident, and something inside Mara tightens in response, not from the danger above, but from the shape of the silence between them. You left, he says finally. It's soft. Too soft. And it lands harder than anything he said so far. Mara's jaw sets, her focus narrowing, but the words don't stay contained, they move, pulling something with them, something she's spent years keeping separate from everything else. The smell sharpens, the room tilts just slightly, and suddenly the back room isn't just a diner storage space anymore, it overlaps with something older, colder. Concrete. Fluorescent light that hums instead of flickers. A door that locks from the outside. Her fingers tighten again, this time for real, grounding herself in the present, but it's not clean, not complete, the past doesn't stay where she left it. I didn't leave, she says, and there's a strain in it now, a thin line pulled too tight. I got out. Another pause. Above them, footsteps shift closer, right over the door now, weight settling in place as if someone has decided exactly where to stand. Victor watches her, not pushing, not interrupting, and that restraint says more than anything else could, because it means he knows, not the details, maybe, but enough. You think those are different things, he says. Mara lets out a breath that almost turns into something else, something sharper, but she swallows it down, forcing it back into control because losing that now would cost too much. They are. No, Victor replies, just as quietly. They're just different sides of the same deal. The word hangs there. Deal. And that's what cracks it open, not all at once, not a clean break, just a seam splitting under pressure. Mara doesn't move, but something behind her eyes shifts, pulling her backward without taking her out of the room, layering memory over reality in fragments that don't ask permission. A table that isn't hers. A voice she doesn't see, only hears, calm and patient in a way that feels worse than anger. A choice that isn't presented as one, just a series of consequences lined up until there's only one direction left. Her pulse picks up, not fast, not wild, steady, deliberate, the way it does when she knows she's about to lose ground she fought hard to claim. You don't get to define that, she says, but the words don't land the way she wants them to, don't carry the weight they used to. Victor tilts his head slightly, studying her, and for the first time there's something like regret in his expression, not apology, not quite, but close enough to unsettle. I'm not defining it, he says. I'm reminding you. Above them, the handle jerks harder this time, a sharp metallic click following it, like someone testing the latch more seriously now, and Mara's attention snaps upward for a fraction of a second before returning to Victor, faster than before, like she can't afford to look away for long. You said it leads back to me, she presses, her voice lower, tighter. How? Victor exhales slowly, his shoulders shifting as if the answer has weight to it, something he's been carrying longer than he intended. Because you didn't just walk away, he says. You were let go. The words hit differently. Not like an accusation, like a correction. Mara feels it land, feels the way it presses against everything she's built since then, and for a moment the room goes quieter than it should, the sounds above dimming just enough for the meaning to settle. No, she says, but there's less certainty in it now. That's not. It is, Victor cuts in, not louder, just firmer. You think you slipped through something. You think you got lucky. You didn't. Her throat tightens, the memory fragments sharpening whether she wants them to or not, the way the door had opened without explanation, the way no one had stopped her, the way the silence had followed her out like it was part of the arrangement. She hadn't questioned it. Not then. Not after. Why would they let me go, she asks, and the question is quieter than anything she's said so far, not because she's calm, but because something inside her doesn't want the answer. Victor holds her gaze. Because he has one. Because it cost them something to keep you, he says. And someone made that cost worth paying. Mara doesn't blink. Doesn't breathe. For a second, the room holds still, not empty, not quiet, just suspended, like everything is waiting for her to connect something she hasn't let herself see. A face almost forms in her mind, not clearly, not fully, just an outline, a presence tied to that moment, to that door opening, to the absence of resistance that had never made sense. And then, a loud crack as the latch gives. The door shifts inward half an inch, with scraping against the floor, the barrier between spaces no longer sealed, just held in place by pressure and timing. Mara's focus snaps back, sharp and immediate, the present slamming into place over everything else. But the damage is done, the past hasn't faded, it's aligned. You knew, she says, the words low, controlled, but carrying something heavier now, something closer to certainty than suspicion. You knew what that was. Victor doesn't look away. I knew what it meant. Above them, a hand presses against the door, slow, steady, pushing it further open by degrees, and Mara feels the space closing in, not just physically, but in every direction that matters. Because this isn't just about hiding him anymore. It never was. If they take you, she starts, her voice tightening as the realization finishes forming, as the shape of it locks into place whether she wants it to or not. Victor watches her, waiting. Mara swallows, the weight of it settling fully now, pressing down into something she can't undo. They don't just come back for me, she says. The door opens another inch. Her grip tightens, her pulse steadying into something colder, more deliberate. They come back for whatever made them let me go. The door presses inward another inch, with dragging slow against the floor, and the gap is wide enough now that the light from the diner spills into the back room in a thin, pale strip, cutting across Mara's shoes, stopping just short of Victor's. Neither of them moves. Not because there's nothing left to do, but because everything that matters has already shifted, and the choice isn't ahead of her anymore. It's here, already waiting, already narrowing. They come back for whatever made them let me go. The words sit between them, not loud, not urgent, just settled, like they've always been true and she's only now stopped long enough to hear them. Victor watches her, not pushing, not asking, and that stillness lands heavier than anything else, because he isn't trying to convince her anymore. He's waiting to see which version of her is real. The door creaks again, a fraction wider, the sound of a hand against it steady, patient, and above that, the faint shift of weight, someone leaning in just enough to feel resistance instead of forcing it. Mara exhales slowly, her gaze dropping, not away, not in retreat, but downward, to the narrow strip of light on the floor, to the way it trembles slightly with each movement on the other side. For a moment, it almost feels simple. Let it open. Step back. Say his name. Let everything realign the way it's supposed to. Her shoulders ease, just slightly, as if her body recognizes the shape of that decision, the clean edge of it, the way it would end this, quick, contained, final. Safe. But the word doesn't settle. It lingers, and then slips. Because it doesn't fit anymore, not with what she knows now, not with what's already been pulled back into the open. Mara's fingers tighten, not on anything visible, but on something built into the rhythm of the room itself, and when she lifts her head again, her eyes don't go to the door. They go to Victor. Don't move, she says quietly. It isn't sharp. It isn't rushed. It lands with the kind of control that doesn't ask to be followed. Victor doesn't argue. Doesn't question. He just watches her, something unreadable settling behind his eyes as she steps past him, moving toward the shelving unit along the far wall, the one stacked with boxes that haven't been touched in years, or at least, that's how it looks. The door shifts again behind her, another inch, the gap widening, the light stretching further across the floor now, brushing the edge of her heel. Mara doesn't look back. Her hand slides along the edge of the metal shelf, fingers finding a point that doesn't stand out, doesn't signal anything, until it does, with the faintest click beneath her palm. For a second, nothing happens. Then the bottom panel loosens. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. Victor's breath catches, barely there, but she hears it, feels it, and it pulls something tight in her chest as she turns, her voice lower now, closer. Inside, she says. He doesn't hesitate this time. Whatever questions he has, whatever understanding is forming behind his eyes, it doesn't slow him down. He moves quickly, controlled, slipping toward the opening as Mara shifts the panel wider, the space behind it dark, narrow, but real. Not improvised. Not new. His hand brushes the edge as he ducks in, pausing just long enough to look back at her, and in that glance there's something that wasn't there before, not relief, not gratitude, something closer to recognition. You always had a way out, he murmurs. Mara meets his eyes, and for a moment the room holds still again, the sound of the door behind them fading just enough for the meaning to settle where it needs to. No, she says, her voice steady, but quieter than before. I had a way through. Then she pushes the panel closed. It seals cleanly, the seam disappearing back into the structure like it was never there, leaving nothing but the same worn metal, the same stacked boxes, the same unremarkable wall. Behind her, the door opens fully. Mara turns before it finishes, not rushing, not stalling, just stepping into place as the back room is finally exposed, light flooding in, footsteps crossing the threshold with quiet authority. She doesn't step away. Doesn't look toward the wall. Her hands settle at her sides, empty, visible, her posture easy in a way that doesn't invite suspicion but doesn't avoid it either. One of them moves forward, slow, deliberate, eyes sweeping the room, not frantic, not uncertain, practiced. Mara holds his gaze when it reaches her. Not defiant. Not submissive. Just there. The second stretch, thin and quiet, the kind that carry more weight than anything spoken, and in that space she feels it fully now, the line she's crossed, the version of herself she didn't just remember, but stepped back into without hesitation. There's no separation left. No clean edge. Only this. The man's gaze lingers a moment longer, then shifts past her, scanning the shelves, the corners, the narrow spaces that don't give anything back. Mara doesn't move. Doesn't breathe any differently. Just stands there, steady, as the search continues around her instead of through her. And in the stillness that follows, with the room no longer hers but not entirely theirs, she becomes aware of something small, almost distant, the faintest vibration through the metal behind her, so subtle it could be missed if she weren't already listening for it. Not movement. Not panic. Just presence. Waiting. Mara's eyes stay forward, her expression unchanged, but something settles deeper inside her, not sharp, not sudden, just certain. Because the door is open now. And this time, she didn't walk out of it.